I've never seen as much spam in Google's results so blatantly in top positions. I've never seen so many big companies getting away with horrible low quality content ranking prominently. You name it, there's all kinds of issues. And I've never also had so many people, probably 20 to 30 people every day, message me desperately because either their websites are being outranked by spam or AI content, or their content is being scraped and plagiarized using AI tools.
Hi, I'm Eric Schwartzman, author of The Digital Pivot, and this is the Earned Media Podcast. My guest today is Lily Ray. She is the VP of SEO Strategy and Research at Amsive, and I am pleased to have her with me on this podcast. Lily, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. So I want to talk to you about what's going on with this rollout that Google has been rolling out and is still not done rolling out. And it's said to be the biggest rollout in the history of the search engine. What's going on? Is Google getting crushed by the same AI it's developing?
I think that Google is dealing with a lot of new challenges related to a rampant increase in AI generated content being proliferated around the internet. This isn't fundamentally new for them in the sense that they've been developing algorithms and ranking systems aimed at reducing the visibility of spammy content and content that's auto-generated for SEO and things like this. They've been doing that forever. What's different now is that they have these, people have at their disposal these tools that they can use like ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude to create content really quickly and easily at scale using AI. So what we're seeing right now with the March core update, among other things that Google seems to be updating and targeting with this algorithm update, it seems like Google is trying to take bold action against mass auto-generated AI content that doesn't add a lot of value for Google searchers. And to your point, it's the longest core algorithm update we've had in Google's history because I think these are very complex problems to solve and they want to make sure they get it right.
So regarding, the quantity of AI generated content that has been uploaded since chatbots have become widely available, I mean, is there any sort of hard data on sort of the number of new web pages that have been uploaded online since tools like ChatGPT became available?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I think that probably only Google would know because they have to crawl all this information. I mean, it's clear just anecdotally, at least within the SEO space, that I imagine the growth of content is exponential right now just because of how much faster these tools can create content and how much people have been finding ways to scale these processes. There's something within the SEO community, for example, called Programmatic SEO, which is essentially just like finding ways to automate the content creation and scale the content creation process very quickly. And using AI only increases the speed at which people can create new content. So within the last year and a half, a lot of people, especially in the SEO space and content creation space, have been shouting from the mountaintops how to use tools like ChatGPT to create 10,000 articles in 5 minutes, right? And blast that to search engines like Google and Bing. And what Google and Bing are doing now is neutralizing that type of content.
Wow. I mean, it seems like when you look at search results and you see a lot of things that are being shared on Twitter by people like yourself and others, it seems like the spammers are winning the war, at least so far.
Yeah, this happens in cycles with Google. Spammers might win temporarily doing certain things, and then Google has to develop new algorithm updates to target what they're doing. I think generally Google wins, but the spammers keep trying and they try new methods, and these tools are giving spammers new methods, which is exactly what we're seeing. But people like myself who have been working in the SEO space for a really long time, and probably most of us who have been working in the SEO space for at least 10 years, have been affected by algorithm updates at one point or another, or worse, manual actions, which is an actual slap on the wrist or penalty from Google. You start to learn that you can only get away with so much before they catch on to you. So for those of us that work on actual like enterprise and real business clients with SEO, we don't take a lot of these risks. But I think a lot of people were very surprised that Google cracked down on mass AI auto-generated content because it was working for a while. But like many tricks in the SEO space, they work until they don't. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Do we have any evidence that Google search results are deteriorating?
That's a good question that everyone keeps asking right now. I can only provide what I'm seeing anecdotally and with very, very small sample sizes in terms of the data that I look at. Nobody has anything close to the amount of data that Google actually has. So when you hear them speak, I think they almost always say like, our users like it, things are fine, it keeps getting better, we keep improving the quality of results. A lot of times lately, I feel that there's a really big disconnect between what like Sundar Pichai, their CEO, will say about Google's results and the direction that it's going with what I'm seeing personally. But of course, I'm an SEO. Of course, I'm only working on a small number of sites. And of course, what the SEO community feels is not what's necessarily what most users feel. So I don't know the answer to that. I can only speak from my own experience, which is somebody that lives and breathes this stuff every single day. I've never in my 14 plus year career seen the quality of search results as poor as they are right now. I've never seen as much spam in Google's results so blatantly in top positions. I've never seen so many big companies getting away with horrible low quality content ranking prominently. You name it, there's all kinds of issues. And I've never also had so many people, probably 20 to 30 people every day, message me desperately because either their websites are being outranked by spam or AI content, or their content is being scraped and plagiarized using AI tools. So anecdotally, it feels like the problem is much worse.
Besides the prioritization of form results, what other major shifts are you seeing in the SERPs?
Yeah, this is something I think one of the biggest shifts that's going to be very hard for Google to solve if it does at all is that a lot of the biggest publishers on the internet, I mean, you name it, any big publisher essentially, uh, are able to produce a lot of review and affiliate content, whether that's produced internally or produced with the help of third-party content creation companies who have some type of incentive, whether it's linking to Amazon products or any type of affiliate agreement, where the biggest publishers on the internet seem to be able to rank for a lot of these types of queries. And it's things like best vacuum cleaners, best pet food, best dog insurance, Um, and you'll see almost always it's the biggest players on the internet that get to rank for all this stuff. And uh, a lot of the times lately, one of the biggest complaints that SEOs and a lot of users have is that for a long time, Google was promoting and still promotes this notion of what they call EEAT, which stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And when you see a sports website able to rank for best cat food in 2024, it flies in the face of what Google says to do with EEAT, like authoritativeness. So that's been very frustrating, and that's a problem that I think will be very hard for them to solve.
When you see these publisher sites that run sponsored content, aka native advertising, and those articles are maybe not completely AI generated, or maybe not, taken wholesale from a client and uploaded, but wordsmithed a little. And I mean, you see like on Vogue, 10 best women's shade hats for summer,
Yeah.
and they're all affiliate links. And of course, there's the disclosure that says, this we're not influenced by this, but we may make money off the link.
Yeah.
And that type of behavior is probably safe, right? Because it is Vogue and they do cover fashion, and someone has at least, wordsmithed it. I guess the bigger risk would be, just taking wholesale press releases and uploading them to your site, which obviously a lot of organizations do. But one thing you've noted, and I've seen this kind of in your shares lately on Twitter, is that it seems as though most of those articles that are being moved by publishers are being done so at a subfolder that could be easily, dismissed in the algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah, great points. There's a spectrum of this approach and how well it works for publishers, and we're seeing this is those of us that have worked in this space for these types of companies, like my team and me. We work with a lot of big publishers. We know that publishers are desperate for new revenue sources, and this is a really big one for them. Working with sponsored content or even companies that provide third-party sponsored content. This is turning out to be very beneficial for them from an SEO perspective, or it has for a while. Because if you look, for example, the New York Times purchased Wirecutter. That was the first big clue. And if you look right now at the organic visibility of the New York Times website over time, looking primarily at what we call evergreen content, the things, articles that rank throughout the year, not like brand new news articles. If you look purely at evergreen content, the Wirecutter is by far the biggest driver of SEO traffic and visibility on the New York Times. I'm speaking from third-party data. I don't work there. I don't have the first-party data, so I can't confirm that. But as far as what I'm seeing from third-party tools, the Wirecutter was a really great investment for them because it's driving a lot of their SEO traffic. So I think a lot of publishers started to do the same thing in the last few years, which is why you'll see Vogue having, best tennis racket content or whatever. There's a spectrum to your point. So the companies that are doing this in-house, like the New York Times bought Wirecutter, so that's an internal product, and they're doing it in a way where we've always used the Wirecutter as the gold standard because they have really good in-depth product reviews that are like very heavily tested by the people writing the articles, or like Good Housekeeping, these types of things. A lot of publishers have followed suit, and now you're seeing a lot, almost all of them, produce content in this type of way where I would say the Wirecutter is the gold standard, but on the other end of the spectrum, we have completely reckless, like subleasing that content to a third party or third party individuals like SEOs who will then post an article on your site. This is best tennis rackets in 2024. And that's purely affiliate links. It's not edited. It's not reviewed by the actual publisher. That's the worst case scenario. And that's what Google's going after. So there's this really big spectrum, and most publishers kind of fall in the middle. So I think users are feeling frustrated with all of it. So it's hard to say how far Google's going to go because it's hard to tell the New York Times the Wirecutter is not good content. It is great content, So it's just a question of how far they'll go.
One time I used a Wirecutter article to buy the best nail clippers. And, they look good, but they weren't really, I didn't think they were that great. And also I used them once to buy a shaver, and I didn't think it was that great either. But obviously it's better than spam, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Why do you think it is that Google is allowing YouTube users to upload tutorials on how to game search?
That is a wonderful question, and one that I've actually asked Google myself. I think first of all, it's free speech. I mean, you can't, once you start to police whether or not something is promoting the spamming of Google, it's like, is all SEO content against YouTube's guidelines? I think that's a really slippery slope. But it is really ironic to me that most of the spam tactics that are being promoted on places like YouTube. A lot of them are also like private, which I think is where spammers should probably be having their conversations. But they're two separate products. They have their own guidelines for content creation. But YouTube is taking certain steps and has been taking certain steps similar to Google's over the years, like labeling dangerous content, working with doctors to elevate high quality medical content. Lately, they banned or they said AI content needs to be labeled in certain ways. So they have their own guidelines. But I do find it endlessly ironic that the most prolific spammers of Google are YouTube celebrities.
Hey, on that note of, health-related content, you mentioned that, you've been monitoring a number of keywords that Mayo Clinic ranks for, and that in some cases you wind up finding discussion and forum results, sandwiched in the top 3 somewhere. And, those forum results for keywords like kidney stone pain or bruising easily can show up for both Quora and Reddit. And obviously, those are just open user-generated content platforms where people share their experiences and opinions, but they're not healthcare professionals. Why do you think it is that Google is allowing that type of content to rank so highly? And do you think it's dangerous?
Yes, I think it's dangerous. Um, I think that, I mean, this is a version of what they've said, but they have gotten a lot of feedback over the years from users that they do enjoy that type of content, forum content. They've said this explicitly with some new product updates, including discussions and forums. You know, we've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of probably user signals that people like this type of content, and so that's why they're doing it. Do I think? I think also like this is purely my own opinion, but I think for whatever reason, the systems that Google uses to identify when a keyword might be dangerous, which are systems that they've had forever, not forever, but for a very long time, it doesn't seem like those systems are preventing Google from showing discussions and forums. I mean, they're not. I have thousands of examples. And what I was surprised to see is because I spoke with a journalist at Business Insider the last couple of weeks about this. I was expecting, and I was also basing this off Danny Sullivan's response to one of my tweets about it, where he said, "This is good feedback. We're taking it internally. Maybe Google will consider doing something like saying, these are forum results, just like a warning to the user that maybe they're not 100% accurate, something like that." So I was actually thinking, okay, maybe Google forgot to turn off the discussions and forums for medical keywords. Like people make mistakes, maybe that happened, I don't know. But then they responded to the Business Insider article and said, we feel good about these forum results, and we haven't found any like data indicating that there's particularly dangerous information contained in the discussions and forums. I was very surprised to see that.
I was having dinner at a friend's house the other night, and his daughter was there, and she is a graduate student at Columbia. So,
Cool.
highly educated, just starting the graduate school there. And I was thinking about what we heard Mike King say at the SEO meetup conference we were at when he said his babysitter doesn't Google, she searches it up. To implying that she consults other sources besides just Google. And so I asked Olivia, hey, do you search in places other than Google? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, I go to Google, but then I go to TikTok or Instagram to search for reviews. And I said, well, what sort of reviews do you search for? And she said, well, mostly like supplements, workout routines, health advice, that type of information. And she said, but I don't want somebody who's too polished or somebody who's like a mega influencer. I want like a hippie. That was the word she used. But my interpretation of that was she wanted someone unpolished who was sort of off the cuff, giving a personal, human, authentic account of their experience using these products, right?
Yeah.
And so if that is the case, if people do want human accounts, a video, right, at least until deepfakes, I guess, become as common as ChatGPT, is arguably more credible and more authentic than a comment in a forum. But do you think it could be that the reason Google's doing this is because they don't have a TikTok and they don't have an Instagram and they need some way to provide review content? And those guys are willing to give it to them.
Yeah, that's really, really great questions and observations. I think you're absolutely right that, and what she was saying about wanting like a more human experience, I think that's a trend that's very pervasive, especially with younger generations right now, like validating the search with real human experiences. And yes, I think that Google elevating forum content, um, ironically, to your point, like we don't know who the Redditor is, so it's definitely not the most authentic experience if a Redditor is giving you medical advice. But a lot of people do still, it's anonymous as well. So some people actually like that because they feel like they can share more on Reddit. But yeah, Google actually does have a version of TikTok. It's YouTube Shorts that they are pushing in the results. They actually now have a new dedicated filter within Google search to take you directly to YouTube Shorts. And they've been experimenting over the last year or two with like different ways of displaying what they call perspective content. So social media, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, blogs, things like this. But I do think you raise a very good point, which in general is yes. The opposite of boring AI content is human content, real human content, which is why younger people like TikTok so much. And which is why younger people keep making that comment, which is, I don't want it to be an influencer. I don't want them to be paid. I just want them to be an authentic person telling me their experience, and I want to see what they look like, and I want to see what the way they're saying it, because people want authenticity. So I think, yeah, Google's probably trying to do a version of that by elevating forum content, because even though it's not the actual person saying it, it's still real people having real conversations.
So I didn't ask her this question because I got pulled away by my stepmother who wanted to leave the table. She was like, we gotta go, we gotta go. She was tired. But I wanted to also ask her about like ChatGPT because, you know, when I was at the conference, I went to lunch with a couple of people, and Alita Solis was actually using ChatGPT to search for something like in her hand as we were walking around. And what I wanted to ask Olivia was, well, when would you search ChatGPT? What would you, I know how I use it. I tend to use it to refine my query or to figure out what to search for. If I don't know what something's called, I can upload an image and I can ask a question, or I can just say, hey, what is there a way to say this? But how do you think people are using ChatGPT for search?
Well, most people aren't. It's in the scheme of things, it's still a small community of like innovative tech people, I think, predominantly using ChatGPT. But yeah, that depends on the person. I think a lot of people who have used ChatGPT and Copilot and things like this find it to be more helpful for their day-to-day searches. There was a really interesting article that Ahrefs did a couple weeks ago about I replaced Google with Perplexity.ai, which is another AI product, for a whole week just to see what my experience was. And it was like very positive. It was like, that was actually a really great experience, which is kind of alarming. But like you said, I think I have certain use cases for when I use AI, and it's not always like I still use Google all the time. So I think for me, it's a different type of tool and product. But like, I wouldn't use ChatGPT to say, best place to have dinner tonight in the meatpacking district. Like I wouldn't do that, because I'm like, I don't care whatever ChatGPT is pulling from, it's not.
But you probably wouldn't use Google for that one either.
No, I would, but
You
I
would.
would yeah, because Google's a starting point. Like, I'm not going to go on TikTok and find my meatpacking district restaurant. I don't do that. I'm an older millennial. That's not how I do my searches. But no, I mean, Google houses all the data from users from all over the place. So whether I end up on Google Maps or Yelp or TripAdvisor, that's still how I make my decisions usually. But Google's the starting point, right? It houses all the world's information. So but I'm also a savvy user. I know how to modify my searches. I know how to look for certain things from certain websites or whatever it is. So the average person will probably have a more enjoyable experience with ChatGPT right now, but the average person also probably doesn't realize how many flaws there are in the answers.
So when I, use search, I would say when I was Olivia's age and I was using search, I regarded search results as impartial and unbiased. I regarded the algorithm as capable of surfacing results that truly were the best. And I knew that they were selling ads against those. And I regarded the paid ads as something that obviously were a little more suspect. But the organic ads were, to me, seen as, the most trustworthy. Do you think people still feel that way?
I think that's a behavior and that's a perspective that has been kind of subconsciously drilled into most people over the years. Like, I agree with you, and that's why I work in SEO, because I believe in the things that you said to be true. That's why I like this profession, or have liked this profession. I think things are changing a bit right now, but again, I can only speak for the tech world that I'm a part of and our perspectives. I'm not talking to a middle-aged mother in Alabama about how she feels about Google. I don't know. Most people, I think, have Google as their default browser and their default search behavior, so they just use what they have. But you hear anecdotally a lot more people, a lot of people saying people are shifting to Bing, they're shifting to other search engines, they're starting with TikTok, they're starting with Reddit, they're going all these different places. So I think we're seeing the beginning of a sea change, and I think that's also echoed by the fact that Google's senior leadership, it continues to be on record about everything being on fire, and it's a big red alert, and they feel threats from every direction right now.
Regarding site reputation abuse, we talked a little bit about it when we talked about native advertising and sponsored content. Do you think a publisher who has a performance marketing division and writes content that's in line with their topical, whatever they cover, but is motivated by affiliate links, do you see that as site reputation abuse?
The answer to this is I think it's in Google's documentation, because they do provide about 5 or 6 very specific examples of what they mean by site reputation abuse, and you really have to read carefully what they mean. So just off the top of my head, some examples they give are like, if you are a medical website with an article about best casinos in 2024, that's site reputation abuse. But if you're a medical site and you have an article about best workout supplements in 2024, and the people that work at that medical site were involved in the creation of that content, that's not site reputation abuse. So it's very nuanced. But I also am very reluctant to give any type of confident answer to this question, because it hasn't happened yet. For all we know, Google does nothing. Or for all we know, they send thousands of manual actions and every publisher on the whole internet is penalized. We just don't know, and we're not going to know until May 5th. So I keep telling people over and over, I'm doing the best I can going off of the documentation that they have and the warnings that they gave us, but literally nobody in the whole world knows.
I've heard some theories, unsubstantiated theories, that perhaps the reason search results have deteriorated is because Google is getting ready to replace the concept of citation indexing with some AI brainchild scheme that's going to improve their results. What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe in 10 years that'll be true, or 5 years. I mean, AI moves really quickly, but with the current rollout of SGE and the current beta version and the quality of the search results and the fact that SGE needs high quality content to provide good answers, I think that sounds extremely ambitious and unrealistic right now. But do I think that's the direction they're going? Yeah, probably. I think that probably search in 5 or 10 years will look a whole lot like mostly SGE type answers. But I go back and forth on this, because at the same time, people want websites. Like, if you think about a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, there's certain websites people are looking for that they want. And that's what they use Google to do. They use Google to get there. And SGE can't replace everything. So yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't know if this is why Google's right now why they're having as many search quality issues and spam problems. I don't think it's like we're letting this happen because we're building this AI thing. I think that it's more that so many internal resources are focused on AI at Google right now as this red alert thing that we keep hearing about, that maybe they've taken their eye off the prize.
Can you talk a little bit about this red alert thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the word that they used was it like a year ago? It was the Google red alert. Of course, I can't find it on Google. It's Google. It was a code red. And that was ChatGPT, essentially. ChatGPT created a code red for Google because this is an existential threat to Google's business model. They've had big existential threats in the past, like Amazon is an existential threat to Google Shopping. TikTok is an existential threat to YouTube and younger people looking for this type of content. And it's true that a lot of younger people start their searches on TikTok or enhance their searches with TikTok. These are competitors that they've had for a long time. ChatGPT is different because it's a fundamental threat to search. It's the way that people search, and it's so impressive that it definitely makes you think that it makes you realize that you're probably going to have a better experience asking ChatGPT all kinds of questions you used to rely on Google for. So that's where the code red came from. And you continue to this day, including yesterday, you'll see articles about how Google's effectively saying internally, we need to move faster or we're not moving fast enough. They said that yesterday.
Where did they say that?
CNBC. Google search boss warns employees of new operating reality, urges them to move faster.
And we'll include these links in the show notes for the podcast. If anybody wants to read them, I'll make sure they're there. So thanks for digging that up. In terms of the existential threat from Amazon, Alita at her keynote talked a little bit about how the search experience is changing for e-commerce related results, and you can force these results if you want to try at home by just putting the word buy in front of sneakers or wine or headphones or whatever it is, and you'll get not just the paid shopping carousel at the top of the screen, but also about midway down, you'll get this organic product snippet grid that has star ratings and pricing. And then if you select any of those products in the grid on the right-hand side, you'll actually get a product detail page right there in Google search. You don't even have to transit to the e-commerce website. Mm-hmm. And one thing I did notice in those product detail snippets on the right-hand side, or I don't know what else to call it, it has a list of e-commerce retailers who sell that product. And it looks to me like the manufacturer is always ranked number one in there, which could actually put brands in the cat seat for DTC against resellers. We'll see about that. I mean, that could be easily changed. I don't think Google is levying a commission now for this sale, but God only knows. I mean, if they drive enough traffic, they certainly could. You work with a lot of e-commerce clients, and I wonder, from a strategic standpoint, how you're looking at this and how this sort of figures into your game plan for your clients.
Yeah, well, we have a dedicated e-commerce team that is focused on staying on top of the latest and greatest developments with Google Shopping and Google Merchant Center, because it's mostly structured data related as well as shopping feeds. So it's really about optimizing those things. Frankly, I used to do e-commerce SEO for like 7 or 8 years, pretty much every single day, but I don't focus on it as much lately. So it's mostly the team that's doing it. But I know for a fact our team has like all these internal resources about all the best ways to optimize your Merchant Center feeds and your structured data to get all the possible enhancements, which I think lends itself to who gets to rank the best, is who's leveraging all those enhancements. And of course, other factors like who has the best SEO experience, who has the best website experience and everything like that. But yeah, it's you have to be part of Google Shopping at this point to be able to compete with what they're building. And if you go to the Google Shopping tab at this point, it does look a whole lot like Amazon. So this is like, I think, separate from the things we've talked about so far, but it is one of the big missions of Google right now, is to increase Google Shopping usage and to compete with the fact that a lot of people just go directly to Amazon to start their search. Google's trying to get them to stay on Google to start their search. I talked about this a couple of years ago. There was an ad campaign at one point, maybe 2 years ago in New York City, where you walk around New York and it was like a picture of a model wearing shoes. And then it was like a Google search bar. I said, shop shoes on Google, shop hats on Google, shop this. That was the whole ad. It was just telling you that you can shop on Google. It was like, interesting. They're really trying to divert that traffic back from Amazon. So yeah, whole other animal, but merchant-centered feeds and structured data is really where it's at right now.
Well, I mean, the way it could be connected is, 75% of their revenue obviously coming from, from advertising. And if the search marketplace fragments and that 75 becomes 72 or 69 or 68, they've got to pick up that revenue somewhere else.
Yes.
And so, diversifying into these other areas and trying to, generate revenue from them makes a lot of sense. I can tell you, am old enough to have signed up for Gmail when it was free, and I enjoyed a free account for decades. And just recently, maybe in the last month or so, I got an email from Google saying, hey, you know what? The size of the storage in your Gmail is just too much. If you want to keep it, you have to start paying. And voila, they're generating $30 a month for me there. So that's sort of a new revenue stream. So it could be sort of a broad attempt to diversify their revenue across these other businesses that up to now have been loss leaders, but they've got to start generating money now.
I think you're right. I'm seeing the same thing. And there was an article circulating 2 weeks ago about Google even considering charging for some of its new AI products, which was very interesting, especially if that includes SGE, because that would be the first time in the history of Google that any version of its search results are paid.
I'm paying for Gemini. You're not paying for Gemini?
No, this was different. This was like they didn't actually say which AI products this included, but they're considering charging for like a suite of AI tools. And the article made it sound like it included SGE. So that's organic search results, which would be unprecedented.
Hey, we haven't talked about that. So just tell us, what is your prognosis for the future? What is SGE and where do you think it's headed?
So SGE stands for Search Generative Experience, also known as an AI overview. It's something that Google announced as a beta test in Google I/O last year in May. And leading up to that point, a lot of us knew it was coming. It's basically Google's public response to ChatGPT and generative AI tools, because Google it's had, since before ChatGPT existed, it's had the technology to be able to do this type of thing, just like taking a bunch of documents and summarizing it with AI. So I think they had a lot of market pressure to release something, and that's what they did. And it's been in beta this whole time. It's only live for a very, very small subset of users. I want to say in the UK and US, maybe other countries, but it's very small. But some of us, like me, have had it enabled as a beta test on my version of Google for the whole year. So whenever I search, if it's available, I see it. And it's hit or miss. Google has only ever said publicly, to my knowledge, people like it, and it's great. It's a great improvement to search. I've seen a lot of examples of it going awry, dangerous results, spammy results, unhelpful results, inaccurate results, you name it. And, they'll say, well, yeah, you're in the beta test. Of course, you're going to see problems. But my concern is it's been over a year and it doesn't feel, it is better. I'll give them credit. It's much better, but it's not perfect. It's not anywhere near perfect. I don't think it ever will be perfect. I find inaccuracies every day in SGE.
And in order for someone to see it, they have to be in the beta.
Currently, most of the time, yes, but they did just launch a limited public test for some users. So theoretically, any Google searcher, again, and I think it's just UK, US. It might be other countries too, but I've definitely been hearing from people in the UK that they're seeing it. We've only heard I haven't heard or seen it in the wild, or seen anybody seeing it in the wild, but Barry Shorts from Search Engine Roundtable collected a few responses from people who had it enabled without opting in, because you don't opt in. It just shows up on your Google. And they went to Google's support forums and they were like, hey, I'm a college student. I really need to turn this thing off because I don't want to be held accountable for misinformation and lies coming from AI products. And they can't turn it off.
I want to wrap it up with a final question, but before I do, what's going on with you? I know you're keynoting a ton of conferences, on the road all the time. So where can people hear you next in the next few months?
Yeah, I'm actually starting a bit of another tour. We've been doing a lot of SEO tours the past couple of years. So I'm starting here in New York City at the Knowledge Graph Conference. That's going to be May 8th, I want to say. And that'll be very nerdy. I'm on a panel there. Then I go to Madrid, Spain. I'm going to Madrid to do a panel there. That'll be in Spanish. MozCon in Seattle in early June, and then followed by about 5 or 7 speaking engagements in Europe throughout June and July.
Well, for those people who want to catch you in June or July, what would be the best ones?
Good question.
Looking for an excuse to write off their holiday.
I'm speaking twice in Berlin, once in Croatia, once in Bologna, Italy, called We Make Future. I think that conference, just from the pictures that I'm seeing, I haven't spoken there before, but I think that's one of these like big, almost like TEDx type conferences. So that might be cool if you want to go to Bologna. I've never been to Bologna, but looking forward to that. And
it's supposed to be great. My niece actually got a master's in world history there.
Oh, cool.
At the Bologna University.
Beautiful. Sounds nice. Maybe let me know if she has any recommendations.
Okay, well, so just to wrap it up, the big question, do you think Google is going to be able to reinvent themselves in the age of AI?
Yes. I do. I think Google's too big and too powerful and has too much history, and they've been at the forefront of this technology since day one. I think they're just trying to get their act together right now, because I think that the ChatGPT was a threat that they didn't necessarily anticipate. But yes, I think they will. I think they'll continue to impress the world with what they can do.
In broad strokes, what do you think will be required to do that?
Hopefully fixing the quality of search results, which is how they make their money, and really improving SGE if that's the route that they choose to take, because right now it has a lot. I think it has left a lot to be desired, but yeah, I think like SGE is better the better that the search results are. So those two things go together. And that's how Google makes most of its money. And that's where people have the most trust in Google. So I hope that they can get back on track.
Do they have the leadership to pull it off?
I don't know at this moment. I don't know enough about the inner workings there. I've never worked there, but there's a lot of articles with a lot of strong opinions on that topic. I don't know enough. Yeah.
All right. We'll include some of those links in the show notes. Lily Ray, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. You're welcome.
For more on how you can earn influence through earned media, get the Digital Pivot audiobook at digitalpivotbook.com.